Once upon a time, in a prosperous kingdom, there lived a humble farmer named Irvin. Though he had little wealth, he was known far and wide for his wisdom and patience. But his son, Arin, was different. People in the village believed Arin was slow-witted. He rarely spoke and never reacted when others mocked him. No matter what insults they threw at him, he simply smiled and walked away. One day, word of Arin's unusual behavior reached the king. Curious, the king decided to visit the village himself. The king looked at Arin and said, "I have heard you are a fool. You do not speak, you do not argue. Are you truly as foolish as they say?" Arin simply smiled and bowed. The king, now intrigued, called for Arin's father, Irwin, and invited him to the palace. The grand palace hall filled with ministers and nobles. "Irvin," the king said, "you are a wise man, but your son is a fool. I insulted him, and he did not even try to defend himself." Irvin smiled and bowed. "Your Majesty, my son is not foolish. He understands something most do not." "Then I shall test him myself," he declared. The king decided to set a challenge for Arin. He summoned 3 of his wisest ministers and instructed them to ask Arin questions, riddles, dilemmas, and philosophical problems to see if he was truly foolish or something else entirely. The first minister stepped forward. "Arin," he said, "if a rich man and a poor man fall into a river, who should be saved first?" Arin smiled and replied, "Whoever is closest, for wisdom is in action, not hesitation." The minister raised an eyebrow, surprised by the answer. The second minister then asked, "If 2 men argue and neither will listen, who is right?" Arin chuckled, "The one who listens first, for wisdom begins with understanding." Murmurs spread through the court. This was not the answer of a fool. The third minister then posed his question, "What is the greatest strength a man can have?" Arin's smile remained as he said, "The strength to endure without anger, to listen without pride, and to act without fear." The hall fell silent. The king studied Arin carefully, then turned to Irvin. "Your son is no fool," he admitted. "He is wiser than most in my court." Irvin bowed. "Wisdom is not in words, but in patience, my king. Arin has simply learned to value peace over empty arguments." The king laughed heartily. "Then let him teach my court what he offered Arin a place among his advisors, and from that day forward, the fool of the village became known as the wisest man in the kingdom. From that day on, no one called Arin a fool. Instead, they sought his advice, realizing that wisdom is often mistaken for silence. Arin walking through the village again, but this time, people bowed to him with respect. Friends, this story teaches us a powerful lesson. In life, people will insult you, mock you, and try to bring you down. But remember, their words only have power if you choose to accept them. If you know your worth, you don't need to prove it to anyone. Stay calm, stay wise, and let your actions speak louder than words.